Hi, I'm Michael. I'm an entrepreneur, small business owner, improv artist, mental health surviving, wannabe actor, and as always, I am very, very neurotic. I'm also a TV host and your host for what we call the Second Scene Podcast. It is a Dweebs Global production. That is why I do this podcast for dweebsglobal.org. They give free mentorship help, anything from resume writing to mental health and whatever is in between. They have people around the world that are listening and ready for you. So please, dweebsglobal.org. So I'm here today with Matthew Gray. And the question really is, what has Matthew Gray not done? So fresh out of high school, actually still kind of in high school, he road toured with the Eagles, Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stone, and Pink Floyd. He is a newspaper journalist, radio talk show host, media coach, author, licensed minister, so many other things. One of the things he loves to do is helping people. And right now he's helping people get off their medications, reverse disease, and lose weight. And he's most recently known for being the chief food guy of Hawaii Food Tours. And we will talk all about this right now. So welcome, Matthew.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me on today.
Thanks for being here. You're in Hawaii right now, is that correct?
Yeah, Honolulu.
Okay. My son keeps begging me to take him to Hawaii. I have a 11-year-old son.
I wonder what he wants to do there. Is he like a kid who loves the beach and all that?
He loves animals. He loves just exploring places. I'm not sure what it is about Hawaii that has really grabbed him.
Are you on the East Coast? I am. Yeah, okay. Well, I can see. I mean, there's a real lot of pull and magnetism of Hawaii for a lot of people on the mainland. I know that I was very curious when I was a kid. They used to have these Dole pineapple and pineapple juice commercials, and it's like this mystique of Hawaii I grew up with. So
yeah. So where would I take my son who loves animals and loves exploring?
You definitely want to take him to Honolulu because it's just so active and busy, and there's a zoo here. Maybe not a lot of animals because our zoo and our environment, the weather-wise, it's so warm that maybe not a lot of animals are here, except maybe tropical ones like peacocks and elephants and snakes and stuff like that. So I think that he would just be enthralled with just the beauty and the people and the hills and the sights and the visuals and all that. And if he digs food, this is also a great place.
Oh, he's a vegetarian.
Oh, that's too bad. Hawaii is not really built for that.
No. I'm not built to be a vegetarian. My wife and my young one are vegetarians. Me and my 13-year-old eat as much meat as we can to make up for their lack of.
Good for you. I think that, in the long run, I think that people who eat meat are going to be healthier overall. I think metabolically and all that other stuff. I've really gotten into the whole health food world after being a chef my entire life. So I think you've got it right.
Okay, my wife would really beg to differ.
Oh yeah, well she doesn't know the latest science. So
what is the latest science? I know this is I know as a part of what you do is you help people cure diseases, lose weight, and everything in between. And I know I've read quite a bit about people. It's sugars really is what really nails people, and getting off of sugars is a big part of getting rid of disease, correct?
Right, but a lot of times people just don't understand what sugars are. Is not just that white powdery substance that we use to sweeten products with or dishes with, but sugars are anything that's starchy. Bread, rice, pasta, vegetables that grow beneath the ground, things along those lines, any sodas, any juices, fruits, things like that, all are sugar. Your body doesn't really understand from a metabolic or scientific viewpoint what the difference is between a cherry or an orange or a Coca-Cola.
But
it's still going to...
Yeah, but there's no way a Coca-Cola's or an apple or an orange is as bad for you as a Coca-Cola. So how does your body's got to tell the difference a bit, right?
A bit. It all depends on the amount of carbs that's in there because sugars and carbohydrates are closely associated. So as far as from a carbohydrate perspective, if Coke has 100 carbs and and a glass of orange juice has 100 carbs, you're probably a little bit better off with the orange juice. But overall, we were not meant to consume that much sugar in our lifetime. And if you go back 100,000 years, humans were not designed to eat constantly like we do. And we only ate when things were like a fresh kill or when their food was available. So, what's happening now to the culture all over the world, not just in America with our sad diet, the standard American diet, is that people are just eating too much, too often, and not the right choices. And what's happening is that people are getting an overload of glucose and insulin because that's a response to the carbohydrates that we put into our system. So yes, it is better to have an orange than it is to have a sip or two of Coca-Cola, but your body from the scientific perspective sees those two things pretty much as the same. So if you're in any way sensitive to um, diabetes, or if you have any sort of health related issues like inflammation or anything along those lines, really the key to good health, uh, less pain, longer life, and not having to rely on big food and big pharma to take care of you is definitely by reducing the carb intake.
Gotcha. So do you have almost no fruits in your diet?
Yeah, except for maybe berries occasionally, blackberries, raspberries, and strawberries. I don't eat the other stuff, and I haven't for, probably 2 years, 3 years, very much, very often. There's no reason to really ingest that much sugar. At least for me, I have a good, personal story. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to cut people off at the pass. People like you who are in their 30s or 40s who don't want to develop prediabetes, don't want to have aches and pains, don't want to have inflammation, don't want to be on a whole bunch of meds. And so that's the important thing. Everyone thinks they're invincible. Just ask somebody who's 18 years old. But when they start getting a little bit older, they start thinking, well, geez, I'm gaining a little bit of weight, or I don't feel so good anymore, or this ache or this pain is bothering me. So I think it all kind of boils down, Michael, to what we're ingesting. That's the primary medical or medicine source of our lives. And this is coming from a guy who lived life to excess and who's lived a life as a chef for other people.
Right.
So I understand this. And since the COVID shit show happened in March 2020, when it took down my business, I decided, now it's a good time to kind of pay it forward and help people understand what they're putting into their bodies.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, thanks for thinking I'm younger than I am. I'm a year and a half from 50. I'm not even a year and a month from 50.
Good for you, man.
But,
you see, you're eating well, you're taking care of yourself, and but there's always a little bit of tweak we can all make. I mean, I totally miss bagels, and so we had some bagel and schmear and lox just a couple weeks ago, and it was like the best thing ever. So, but I hadn't had it in a couple of years. But those are the kinds of things that I now look forward to instead of constant excess.
Well, like you, I've lived in excess, so I'm feeling the pain from all of that excess, and my body is super sensitive to so much. But I've noticed I can't eat an apple. Like, it's interesting. Like, people think I'm crazy. If I have an apple, I get so inflamed, my knuckles hurt. Like, I like climbing and stuff, and like I can't do it. My hands freeze up, and
Right.
I've told people it's due to fruits, and they think I'm nuts.
No, you're absolutely right. Eating an apple, or even worse, having a glass of juice that's made from fruit, is such a rush and such a significant shock to the system that, there's just so much sugar in fruit. It's not a good thing for you. And if you're feeling pain, that's telling you something.
Right, but everyone tells me to eat fruit, so it's so hard to avoid.
They only Yeah, but these are the people who grew up looking at the thing called the food pyramid, which was all designed by funded studies done by big food and big pharma, and so they honestly don't know what they're talking about. When was the last time you went to your doctor and he or she asked you, "So, Michael, what do you eat on a typical day?" Probably never,
Yeah,
right?
no, because because of the stomach problems I've had, my doctors know to talk to me about it, but they would never tell me to lay off of fruit. So, and they would,
They
and also like, yeah, their advice around what to eat doesn't go much farther than don't do McDonald's, don't do Wendy's, don't do a fast food.
yeah.
Other than that, it doesn't really go any deeper.
You know, people say lay off fast food, and I totally agree with that in most ways. But really, if you went to McDonald's, you felt like a nice little protein fix, you could get a couple of double cheeseburgers, no ketchup, throw away the buns, and enjoy yourself, and take good care of yourself. It's absolutely a good happy medium.
Yeah. What about the trans fat that's in the burger or
There's no correlation to animal fats and heart disease whatsoever.
really?
But that's the whole fear factor that they're putting out there. They're talking about saturated fats leading to heart disease. There's something called cause and there's something called correlation, and no one's been able to prove that. That's all about the fear stuff.
So what is an ideal tasty diet that we should be on?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that now because it's totally different than the previous 50 years for me. A tasty diet would be a super low carb diet. Will take away your pain and will help you feel clearer up here. And if your body needs to lose weight, it will automatically just kind of come off. So that's the great thing about a low carb lifestyle. Uh, I eat, or we eat every morning, eggs, avocado, cheese, and maybe a low carb tortilla. And that's breakfast every day. And I'm not talking about one egg or two eggs. I make 5 eggs for myself and my wife to
Oh.
share. And then I make one scrambled egg for the kitty cats every morning as well. And they eat right here on the table with us. So that's pretty wild.
Oh, that's nice. Sounds like a tight knit family you got going there.
They're our kids,
Yeah.
so they are family and they get to eat eggs. And when they're not eating eggs, they're eating salmon and chicken. So I cook for the kitties,
Oh,
along with ourselves all the time. You wouldn't want Lynn cooking for you, that's for sure.
oh no.
So I do all the cooking in the family.
Well, I don't even know. I don't know even know how to turn on a stove. So my wife does all the cooking for us.
Oh, that's funny. Everyone I've ever been involved with my entire life, I had to kind of explain to them that room where the food gets made, what that's called. It's called the kitchen and what you do in there and all that. But apparently, because I am who I am, I haven't attracted people who know how to do the same things I do. So fortunately, they're good at what they do. I'm good at what I do.
Well, nice. So you had Hawaiian food tours in Hawaii. Is that still operational, or has COVID killed it? Where are you at with that?
COVID crushed us.
Hmm.
After 16 years, from 2004 when I started it to 2020, March 15th, 2020 was the last time we ran a tour. And COVID just created this like mass pandemonium and hysteria. And people just don't want to be high touch and close together in a van eating food that I might have touched or the restaurant person might have touched or whatever. So I think we're still a long ways away from being able to do those kind of very, very intimate kind of food tours.
Hmm.
And so unfortunately we're unable to get it restarted. So, I had to kind of pivot and do more stuff and different things with my life. And so it actually maybe in hindsight, being able to connect the dots, maybe where I'm at right now is the next natural progression of where I should be.
Gotcha. Do you miss interacting with the people on a daily basis though? I love that. That's one of my favorite. That's one of the reasons I do my podcast. So
Like you, I'm a very high touch, very intimate, feely, touchy person, and getting out and doing that was some of the best years of my life. That was 16 years of getting to feed, educate, and entertain thousands of people from all over the world. And yeah, it was a great time. And most of my really great friends now who are sprinkled around the world were originally guests on my tours of Hawaii food tours
oh well.
when I first met them. So now if I get to travel and go to Spain or France or Portugal or UK or whatever, I've got buddies who I've now known for many, many years who were guests on my food tour who I've hand fed at first. And so, yeah, I definitely miss that business big time because being behind a screen is not as warm and high touch as what I like to do.
Right, right. No, I know what you mean. Well, you
Yeah.
talking about touring. You this is random, but you toured with the Eagles, Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, and Pink Floyd when you were fresh out of high school. So you're
I wasn't even fresh out of high school. I was still in high school when I was given the opportunity to travel with the Eagles on the Hotel California tour. So that was 75, 76. And my neighbors across the street were working merchandise for a company that sold licensed merchandise for rock and roll bands. And they said, "Hey, Matt, would you like to do this?" I said, "Yeah." They said, the Eagles are going out on their Hotel California tour, and I didn't really know what that was, but I knew who the Eagles were, and I said, "Oh, that would be fun. Let me ask my parents." And they said, "Sure, go have fun." So they were really loose with me, and
Yeah.
they knew that it was going to be an amazing experience, and that I wasn't getting all that I could out of school. So they said, "Yeah, go out there, go learn, and go be with the rock and roll people." And they were also the parents who got me Enjoy Cocaine as a Tiffany lamp
Oh
for
my
my
Lord.
bedroom earlier. So they were a little bit ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And, um, and so, yeah, I went out on the road when I was 17 with the Eagles and then Fleetwood Mac and Pink Floyd and people like that. And I got to do the whole drug, sex, and rock and roll world kind of thing. For a young guy, it was like Nirvana.
Yeah.
And I did the merchandising, and yeah, I did that for about 4 or 5 years
Is it what we all imagine?
and
Yeah.
more. Yeah, I mean, what I didn't see, it's like, I call it the iceberg theory, Michael, is that you only see the tip of the iceberg. The other 85% is below the surface. So what I was allowed to see was just the tip, and it was pretty
Right.
wild.
Well, you were young. They must have you must have gotten a lot of attention just because you were so young on the tour with them. That's
Yeah, we stayed in the same hotels, and we got to kind of like be the filter pass through for a lot of the groupies and the people who were trying to get upstairs. So yeah, it was good. It was a valuable education. Let's just put it that way. And I still have most of my brain
yeah.
cells, which is amazing.
So I know. I wonder how many.
Okay, some.
I
Yeah.
don't know what would have happened to me if I went on that tour. I'm sure I probably would not be here any longer. So you had to have had some restraint. Yeah.
Yeah, or good fortune. Yeah.
So you call yourself a metaphysician to the masses. What does that mean?
I think that has to do with a lot of philosophy, but more about technique of helping people. So that's some that's a way I've always looked at myself throughout my entire life. That I was here for some sort of a greater purpose, more so than just serving myself and serving you. It's maybe serving them or everyone. And so being a metaphysician is more along the lines of a combination of both philosophy and technique.
Okay, kind of what you've been doing for me already in this podcast. I feel like you've already been a bit of an advice giver to me, and that's what I've
Any,
used you as.
yeah, anyone I spend time with like this, it's like it's important to me. It's like it's our time, and yeah, I want to embrace you, and I want to make sure that you feel good, and that the people who are listening and watching us right now feel good. And I'm making myself available to the masses, to anyone who wants to just reach out if they just want to chat, or if they have some deeper issues they want to explore, or whatever. So that's a really good place to be, and that's a place I always kind of put myself, being the people person that I am, and I think that you're the same way. You want to be able to reach out and help people if at all possible because they're going through their stuff.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. No, I always hope that people listening to the podcast, people I'm interviewing, that they feel good afterwards.
Oh yeah,
That's always the
you
goal.
have a great you have a great sound, and I've enjoyed listening to the shows of yours that I have prior to today, and I think that this is going to be a very successful podcast exploration for you and maybe career
Oh,
too.
thank you. I appreciate that. I'm having fun. I'm
Yeah.
having fun doing it. So
Lynn and I always talk about the amount of failures that you have in life is directly associated with the amount of success you'll experience. So you can have those highest levels of success if you haven't tripped up and fallen on your ass in the past.
I definitely agree with that. I don't know. It's a saying that everyone says, but it's true. You learn so much from your failures. You really do. And then you're not
Oh
as
yeah,
afraid to fail in the future. I think that's also another part of it. It's not like it makes you more risk averse, but you're just not afraid to take the next steps. Like you've experienced the pain and the failure and the loss of money or whatever else comes with it, and it takes away the fear a bit.
yeah. Every time you pick yourself up and wipe yourself off, that's a good
Yeah.
thing. Even though it was a bummer to go through it, it's really going to be a good thing for the next stage.
Oh yeah, it's wild how it feels like the end of the world when you go through it too, and then once you're a year or two away, it's much of it's just a blip. It's
Right, right. Time heals everything,
oh
right?
yeah, oh yeah,
But yeah, I think the failure is a really important part of life. A lot of people will never get going or ever get up to bat because they're afraid to fail in advance. And so if you don't try anything, you can't hit the home run and you can't get the next acting gig. You can't do whatever it is that you want to do if you haven't tried something beforehand.
it's so true. Well, you have done a ton. You were a radio talk show host as well. You had one of the
Yeah.
earliest. You had one of the earliest almost like a podcast, but it was a radio show on the internet.
Yeah, Love Life Radio was the name of that. And that was in the 90s. And that was one of the first shows that was broadcast internationally on the internet. And it was about everything in life worth loving: love, sex, communication, male, female dynamics, all that kind of good stuff, healing. But I had been doing talk radio for 10 or 15 years prior to then, back when it was just terrestrial radio, before the internet, when we used to do telephone call type of interviews, and we didn't have this thing, the communication devices and the internet to be able to allow us to do a face to face.
Right, right. I'm sure you got tons out of doing a podcast like that. Do you have any memories about some of the situations or some of the people you interviewed from the talk show?
When I was in LA, I did a show called Matthew the Primetime Chef, and we'd go into the studio at K-Rock, a big studio in Los Angeles, big radio station. And once again, this was before the internet, so people would be listening to us on their radios. And Matthew the Primetime Chef was designed around having listeners call into the radio station and give us compelling reasons why I should leave the radio station at that moment, drive to the winner's house, and cook for them. And then we finish up the radio show from their home over the phone call back to the radio studio. And so that was a whole lot of fun. I got to cook for cops in the middle of a precinct in the middle of the night, emergency room staffers at hospitals, the cubicle at a gas station where the cashier takes your money. People's homes are doing their laundry in the middle of the night. And so all different kinds of wild things inside of a limousine, rolling down the highway. So I was cooking for people on the air back, and this was in the 80s. And so that was long before I ever moved to Hawaii.
Oh, how much fun. And you made radio, somehow you turned radio into into like a personal interaction with people, which didn't think that was possible.
I know now when I look back on it, I go, wow, everything does connect. And everything I've done in my life has been situated around food and entertainment and education and people, and combining all that. Of course, there's been a lot of confusion with that as well, but it's always been kind of something that's been very focused on making people happy, which makes me happy, and then combining food and talk and entertainment with that.
So out of all of these different things you've done, is there a favorite? Is there one of these that you've enjoyed the most?
I loved Hawaii Food Tours because it was a 16-year run.
Right.
And so that was amazing, and got to meet nice people from all over the world, and many, many thousands of them, along with the wonderful 5-star reviews you can see all over the internet if you just look up Hawaii Food Tours or Matthew Gray, or both of those, and you see what these people had to say, that, I got to make memories for them. And so all these many years later, Michael, they don't remember what I fed them, and they may not remember what I told them, but they remember the way that they felt in my presence. And that means everything in the world to me.
That is, it's so true about memories from vacations. My best memories are my family vacations. And you're right. I don't remember the details of what happened, but I remember just how I felt. Yeah. How I felt.
Yeah. And it turns out that memories are based on events that happen in your life, traumatic or otherwise, but more of an emotional input. When you have emotional memories of something, it'll stick with you and helps you learn. So if you look back at school, you probably don't remember much, but what you do remember were things that hit you in an emotional place.
Got you. I wonder if there's something that can be improved about teaching by using the emotional aspect of it.
Well, probably everything in teaching could be improved, especially because the educational system now, at least here in our country, is based on, okay, kids, memorize this and then repeat it back to me next week when we have our test. And what good is that? I mean, I could tell you of all the Latin classes and literary classes and all the things that I did that bored the hell out of me. I don't remember anything. But the bachelor living class that I took with this great teacher, Joe Feinstein, I remember that because he made us laugh, he made us cry, and he talked to us about balancing our checkbook and other mundane aspects of life, which I took as a very emotional way of living. And I learned that, and I remember that because of those expressions of of communication that he made. So all the other stuff, just chalk it up. There's no sense in memorizing and then forgetting. You might as well have it hit in here so you can remember.
Right. That is unfortunate about our school system, is it really is all about the testing. And
It is. And now, I don't know if you just saw recently, the AI that's out there, and Chat GPT was able to pass a medical exam and a bar exam. So you don't have to be so smart anymore. If you've got the ability to call up Chat GPT or other AI tools on your cell phone, you could sit in a college class and pass your exams. And that's scary.
it is fascinating, this whole movement to AI with the Chat GPT and then the ones that are creating graphics.
Mid-Journey.
Yeah, that's the Elon Musk one. It's it's wild. My son's had a lot of fun creating. He loves animals, so he's creating lions that are fighting elephants or whatever he's doing, or running underneath the moon. But it does some beautiful artwork.
Oh, it does. It creates some amazing artwork. And you know what? I think that when compared to other aspects of social media, I think creating art, even with text prompts, is probably healthier in the long run for kids than having them be on their devices texting to friends.
Oh yeah. We've tried our best to keep our kids off of games and other things online all the time. We've never allowed them use their phones or their iPads at dinner. We play physical, like, cards with a deck of cards and keep the interaction alive. It's hard though. It's really hard.
I could definitely see why, because they're at school, they're seeing their friends, they all have cell devices, and everyone is playing with it, and they correlate that to having fun. And what happens is that the social skills, the most important parts of life, are the social skills, and if they don't accumulate those when they're young, then they're going to get nowhere in life. And so, there was a science project or a study that was done that said the most successful people in life are the ones who can communicate verbally. And if you can communicate verbally, you're going to get to the next level. But if you can't, and that's what's happening right now, I think that, we're in for a hell of a ride down the line.
I would agree. So I guess the last question I was going to ask you is what's been the most rewarding out of the things that you've done in the past? But I'm going to guess it's the food tour.
The food tour was great. The radio experiences were great. I had a food company that supplied food to Trader Joe's. I did a business in Los Angeles called Pamper and Dine, where we supplied massage and fine dining to people in their homes. I had a company that did that was called the Bagel Doctor and the Lox Nurse. The Lox Doctor and the Bagel Nurse. And we used to bring Sunday Times, champagne, and lox and bagels to people's homes. So everything I've done has all been about that whole high touch thing and about food and taking care of people. But that 16-year run with Hawaii Food Tours was amazing. And now this new chapter of helping people with their health and get off medications and lose the weight and be happy and healthy and whole is going to be the next greatest thing.
Right. I think it's the right time. It's people are understanding foods a lot more now and knowing how important it is. So I think people are more willing to listen now than they ever had before. So, well, thank you so much for being on the show. I think people are going to learn a lot from this podcast. So, really appreciate it.
Please ask them to reach out to me if they have any questions regarding food.
Yeah, where can people reach you? I'm sorry. Where can people find you?
You can always find me at hawaiifoodtours.com.
Okay.
And I did release a book called The Ultimate Eater's Guide, the Hawaii edition, for anybody who's planning on coming to Hawaii. You can pick it up there. Or if you just want to reach out to me, my personal telephone number is there, and you can email me. So if you have questions about food, recipes, the best cookie recipe in the world,
okay,
which I don't eat anymore, but I still share that recipe. If you just want to chat, if you need someone to talk to, I'm right there. I'm always available. And if it's down the line when this show is finally released or dropped, as they say, lovelife.com, which we'll be building out. And that is the old lovelife.com radio website that we used to run that is still mine, but we're building out now for podcasting and people like yourself, professionals who want to help others who are doing great shows and stuff.
Okay, great. That's quite the web address too. What a great web address. That's
yeah. I I started that in the early 90s. I had the lovelife.com website, and from that grew the Love Life radio show and one of the very first chat room environments on the internet called Hawaii Chat Universe,
Hmm.
where people would share and engage and do cybersex and stuff like that over the internet through text. I can't believe I've been a part of these things.
Yeah.
Now I look back, it's like wild. So
that's reminding me of my bulletin board days where, I'd sit there for an hour waiting for that one naked picture to download.
yeah, yep. And that's what we did too.
Yeah.
Very innocently kind of stumbled into that
Yeah.
world.
That's funny. Well, thanks again.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and I want to say aloha to you.
Thank you very much. Can I say aloha back? Is that what I'm supposed to do?
Please do. Aloha means hello, goodbye, love, and all of that. So that's a word that you'll need to know when you come here to Hawaii. And you'll also know the word mahalo means thank you, which is funny because a lot of people who come to Hawaii think that mahalo means trash. And the reason that people think mahalo means trash is because on all of the trash receptacles and trash bins around Hawaii, the word mahalo is written on the side. And so basically, we are thanking people for throwing away their trash, but they see it and they think the word mahalo means trash. And so I need to kind of pre-educate anyone who's coming here.
Okay. So you're not calling me trash. You just
right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Mahalo. Hola.
Aloha.
Aloha. I'm learning Spanish right now.
Oh, good man.